My name's Rodney Mott, the art coach. Today I'm going to talk to you about clay. When I went to graduate school and we were in great anticipation of the master's first demo, he walked in quietly after about being 20 minutes late, and we were at the edge of our seats. He reached over and grabbed a simple ball of clay, stuck his knee up on the table, he took it off his knee, revealing this beautiful bowl, and then walked out of the room without saying anything. We all looked at each other and realized that you're not going to get anything done by talking. So let's get to work. Clay is a great material. Many cultures, all the cultures all over the world have had a history with clay. Some more, some less. What we're going to do today is talk about warming up. And clay is going to be used as a metaphor for whatever you do in your life, for passion. When I start out in the morning, I warm up every day. I come in and I begin my day by just starting to wedge the clay a little. How I touch the clay, how firm I touch it, how soft I touch it. A lot of it is pace. A lot of what I'll talk to you today, the lessons that clay teach us are life lessons. I'm making just a small plug of clay, which I will elongate, making a slab. Now, for thousands of years, cultures have been making ceramic sculpture out of these slabs, whether they're ropes of clay, coils of clay. There are tools you can use to make slabs. Every college has a slab roller. I'm kind of like a human slab roller here myself. I've had so much experience making these slabs. So slowly but surely, I'm getting used to it. And as I'm feeling the blood flow through my veins and I'm touching the clay, and I'm breathing softer and I'm starting to warm up my day. Creativity is a morning activity, an evening activity. It'll help you throughout the whole day with all the decisions you make. So as I'm warming up, I'm kind of setting a pace for myself that I can sustain through the day. If I feel that my pace is too fast in the morning and I can't sustain that, I slow down a little bit. It's pretty simple. Now this, as I'm talking to you, is starting to get stretched out a little further and further. During the day, I make all types of different sculptures and pottery. Smaller stuff that I don't have to challenge myself so much with in the beginning. And then my larger challenges will come later in the day. Now, when I get my slab of clay in a rectangular format, similar to this one that I've let pre-dry, and I'll talk to you a lot today about timing. Timing is everything when you're working with clay. You have to let the clay rest a little bit when you want to go back with it and move it a little bit more directly. So, again, the timing is crucial, and you'll find that in life. You know, the things that you do in your life. Is it the right time for you to do it? Is it not the right time? Another one of these lessons. I'm going to go grab my first tool. I don't use a lot of tools. I feel that the number one tool I have in my life is my experience. I like to work with my hands, but occasionally I need another tool, so I'm going to grab a knife. Okay, we have our knife. Now, a knife can be also a stick. You know, imagine us 30,000 years ago out in the desert. We needed a bowl to cook our food in, so, you know, we're going to make that bowl whether we have a knife or not. So that's a good attitude to have, but we do have knives now that it's 2014, so I'll use a knife. I want to talk to you as we progress in about cave drawings and a lot of this so-called primitive stuff that wasn't so primitive. But let's continue with the demo. I'm going to cut small slits out of the corners of the rectangular shape that I made to start to form the small dish. They're simple, direct cuts. And when you work with clay, be fearless. Don't be scared. Make your mark direct. Be confident. Believe in yourself. Today we will talk a lot about believing in yourself. It's my opinion that creativity is the path to self-worth. So we cut these 4 away. And then what we have is this shape. Gently taking our slip, which is just wet clay. This is the glue that holds the connections together. We'll talk a lot about connections. What kind of connections you make with your clay. They have to be good connections. I think that also pertains to life. What kind of connections you make in your life. How do you connect things together? Do they come easily apart or do they last? Another tool that we're going to need is the fork. But we're going to use our knife right now, which will score the clay just fine. What we're doing is roughing the surface up. So when we put the surfaces of the two clays, pieces of clay that together, they're rough. They're not smooth, so that they will stay together in the fire. Clay works in collaboration with fire. Those two elements make beautiful pottery and sculpture. We work in collaboration with other people in our lives to make spectacular things happen. Collaboration is truly a wonderful gift if you can use it. The clay is alive. I really feel like I have a partnership with the clay when I'm moving it and touching it. As I'm working now in front of you guys, I'm getting more warmed up. I'm feeling more comfortable in my body. The goosebumps in the blood is starting to, make me more passionate and feel like this is a really exciting thing that I'm doing. It can be really simple, but it can be really exciting. So again, I'm gonna score these other 2 edges, and I'm working in a technique where there's repetition. Repetition is a really good thing to get used to. If you can repeat your steps that you found for your formula, this will really work for you. You will become a healthier person. So there's a lot of repetition in my life and in my daily life in the way that I warm up and present the day to myself. Okay, so after these are gently connected, what I have is a small dish. And I'm happy. I've created something. And it's out of a piece of mud. And I feel kind of good about myself. And this is that feeling that you can have every day when you choose your passion and you balance your day with this passion. And again, remember, this clay is a metaphor for whatever you choose to be passionate about. I'll just take my finger and gently push the edge down, which creates a little more of a flat base so that when people are eating their cottage cheese, it's not swimming in there like a shipwreck. And pat it down gently, boom. I have a few examples that I wanted to show you of when I have collaborated with the fire and these are done. You can see that they are wonderful little gifts and creations that you've made that you can use in your kitchen, that you can give out to your friends. It's this creativity thing is like a snowball. Now that we've done a little warm up with our simple knee bowl and our French fry dish, we're going to move into a little bit more of the advanced part of the demonstration. If you want to make a bigger piece of clay, all you need is a bigger piece of clay. So whatever it is larger that I want to make, I'm just going to take out of the bag a larger hunk. Here's my bag of clay right here. Now to my students when I teach, a lot of times I tell them the hardest thing about making art is opening the bag of clay. You got to sit there and you kind of wait. Gosh, I don't know what I want to make. I don't really feel creative today. These are really bad feelings. You have to overcome that fear that you may not measure up, that what you make may not measure up. We're not about measuring up. We're about measuring out. Measure it out. Do things. So open that bag of clay. Oh, the goosebumps just flowed up my shoulders. I always know when I'm on to kind of something right, when I can feel that shot of adrenaline go up my body from my back to my shoulders. It's an amazing feeling. It makes me know I'm onto something right. Like you're about to go trick-or-treating to the house that gives you the big candy bar. Okay, I'm going to start my repetition, my pattern again. As I did with a smaller piece of clay, I'm going to wedge. And I'm going to start to feel the pace that I want to collaborate with my clay. I'm not going to overpower my clay. You touch the clay like you would touch an infant. You want it to know you're holding it, but let it feel like it has the choice to be held. When I get it wedged properly, I'm going to repeat that plug pattern that I used to make my dish. And I'm going to make a larger slab. Now, if you think back in art history and you can think of all the things that you've seen, Chinese soldiers that are uncovered, thousands of them, beautiful monolithic heads from African societies. As I said before, so many cultures have invested so much time in this material. We were born of it. We will, when we die, we'll go back to it. So this is a connection that we need to make in our life. Very simple connection. In our really wonderful time right now in 2014, when we've had this incredible amount of technology advance our life in so many different ways, and it's been such a positive thing. One of the things I think we need to do is balance back to a more direct connection. Cooking, sewing, hiking, these things like clay can be the balance that will make your life. I'm continuing to stretch the clay and develop a larger slab. Today's demo is going to be about pattern and template. Recently, I've discovered a technique for myself where I'm using a lot of heavy patterning in my clay. I was known as a great potter. I had my reputation on the wheel, potter's wheel. That, again, like I told you before, is a wonderful tool, but I was kind of restricted by the roundness and thinness of my shapes. Now, by working in slabs, I can work thicker, and I can work with all kinds of different shapes. So I'm almost to the point where I have this big enough. Now comes the fun part. You go around your house and you see what kind of objects you can borrow from your family that they might not miss for a second. I found one right here. It's our floor mat to our entryway. Now, when my wife was looking around, she said, "Honey, where's the mud mat?" I said, "I'm using it down in the studio." And she said, "You better bring that up here," until she came down here and saw the beautiful pots I was making with it. And she said, you can keep it. So I've got it now. I'm going to place my slab on top of the mat gently. Now I'm going to take a rolling pin and I'm going to rolling pin. And when I do this, again, don't attempt to move anything immediately in your life. Coax it into place. Tease it. Maneuver it. This is what you do with clay. If I go right in and try to move it right away, it'll be all divvied in. It won't be too thin in one area, and it won't really work for me. So gradually, in that warm-up attitude, I begin to put pressure on the clay, constantly moving where I'm at. My students fail a lot, and we'll talk about how great failure is in a second. But they don't succeed a lot because they stay in one place for a long time. When you're working with something, go all around it. Think of the whole form that you're working on, the whole piece of clay. If you do that, it will come out a little bit more in sync for you. When we're making anything larger, you don't think about the large thing that you're trying to make. You immediately cut that large thing down into little pieces and you focus on every little part. That you can do. Once a day you can make a little part, great. At the end of the week, you put your 7 little parts together and you have something big. That's how you do big things. It's really cool to do it, look at it that way, because you can do anything you want then. You just cut things down to size and you focus on every little part. So now I'm continuing to push the pattern into the pattern until I'm pretty happy with the thickness. If it gets too thin in an area, I'm kind of in trouble if I want to have it be longer so that I can make a larger piece. Now I'm about to release it. So I turn it over, hold the specially made ceramic tool, and it's really fun. I like to do things that are fun. And then I kind of slowly but surely, hopefully, will be able to release it. It's not a guaranteed science here, but there it is. Okay, beauty, beauty. Now, when I do workshops all over the country, and not unlike a lot of my peers who like to go in and teach what they know and everything comes out perfect, I like to go in there and go off the cuff and just totally fail miserably in front of my students, because I was taught that you don't learn anything without mistakes. So that's my professor. He was noted as learning all of his top stuff from accidents. So I figured as a student, I better just try to make as many mistakes as I could possibly make, because that's how I was going to learn stuff. So I am very comfortable making mistakes in front of people, and I think that's actually would be more respectful to you as students if I did make mistakes in front of you, because you would see actually how I really am creating. Not by succeeding at things, but by not being afraid to fail. Okay, so I have got myself a really cool pattern and a really cool slab of clay that I can make anything I want out of. I can make cups, and I can make bowls, and I can make pots and vases. I can make sculpture, because I've taken the time and I've slowly but surely gone through a technique and a process that I can repeat, and now I'm ready to go. Now, with these slabs that I've already dried out a little previously, I will begin to cut the first template out. Now, you can invent your own templates. This is the wonderful thing about creating. You make all the decisions. It's all about your choice. And in my opinion, our choices are our greatest possessions. With art, you make all the choices. What medium are you going to pick? How big are you going to make your stuff? Are you going to color it? It's all this series of choices and decisions that come at you if you work in a creative way. And so you're not afraid to make decisions. You're not wondering, oh, is that going to be the right decision or the wrong decision? You don't care. You're just going to make that decision. You're a person of action. This is one of the things that's happened, is that by marginalizing creativity, we've marginalized our fearlessness to make decisions. Now, I'm going to make some decisions on this slab right now. Now, deciding what kind of template to cut is excitingly my first use of math. I'm starting to actually see with pattern. I never really was a big math person being an artist. But now with pattern, things are lining up better if I'm counting and I'm thinking in a more mathematical way, which is, kind of a little benefit. So I'm going to do my first math work here, and I'm going to count how many lines of pattern I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, somebody remember that number, 11, 10 plus 1. I was always wondering, if 7 came in one day and wanted to be 8, could it be? Say it was just tired of being 7. I was always kind of thinking about that. Anyway, I'm going to cut right along here, halfway down my slab of clay, cutting in half, and then having 4 along, I'll cut 2 rows up on each slab with 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the middle. I should have taken more. I should have concentrated in those math classes a little better. I'd be making more beautiful pots right now. Darn it all. See, balance. We have to balance all these things together. That's the trick. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now on my next move, I'm going to make it go out, and you'll see why in a second. I'm going to take 1, 2 out, 1, 2 out, and then I'm going to go up. And I'll show you this in a second. Uh-oh, now I'm always hoping my math added up right when I pull it away. Okay, that looks okay. So we have like a little building looking thing. Maybe it's a little chimney mountain looking thing. Really cool. Ooh, I'm already getting excited about my process here. Now this is what happens with creativity. Whether you're sewing or cooking, there's a certain point where your ingredients start going together and they start smelling good. The stew starts to mix. Okay, that's what's starting to happen here. Oh, there's those goosebumps again. So now I need to make another shape, similar or, well, pretty much just like this, so that I can put the two together and make something beautiful. Okay, go 2 to this, 2 to this, and then up. And we'll see where we're at. Now, if you want to, you can make yours exactly right. As you can see, right in front of this major demo, I just went and cut off one side too short. I like it. It's different. It's not right. I'm going to use it. Okay? I don't want things to be just right. Nothing is just right. So when it comes out a little wrong, you're just right. Now I'm going to bevel these edges, slicing off just a little bit of clay so that the seams will go together better. Connections and seams. So now that we've cut our templates, we have 2 sides that we've beveled, and I'm going to score the edges. Again, scoring means you're just roughing up the surface. I found my fork. Fork works great because it's 4 times or 5 times the firepower of the knife. So a little more quicker. I was just reading about the Singer sewing machine that can do when it was invented, it could do 1,900 stitches a minute versus 40 that the best seamstress could do. So this technology, it really does help. It's a great thing. Okay, I have to bevel these edges just a little bit on each side. It's like all the cooking shows that people are watching nowadays. Funniest thing, I gotta tell you this story. We recently turned off all cable. And it was, through a little bit of, debate with my teenage sons. But when we turned it off, within a week, my wife, who had been watching all these cooking shows, was in the kitchen cooking the most unbelievable textured dishes for us like never before in her life. I said to her, honey, you're not watching those shows anymore. Now you're making all the dishes. I don't know. I think there's a message there or something. Okay, now I'm going to use my glue. Again, it's this repetition and pattern that makes this creativity possible, because you've discovered things for yourself. You've discovered a way that you like to work. You've discovered a pace for yourself. You've discovered a material that you like to work with. Now, it's just create. So now these slabs are rigid enough now that they've rested a little, that I can stand them up. Now, if you have an assistant working with you all the time, you might be able to find techniques that you can do that you require 2 people. I don't have an assistant, so I've had to find techniques that work just that I can do with just one person. Now again, this asymmetrical part right here that I made the mistake on is bothering me. Good. I'm glad it's bothering me. You don't want to be all that comfortable when you're creating. It's not people come up to me and say, oh, you're an artist. Oh, well, how nice that is. What a nice hobby. Working with clay is like a total sport. I am a ditch digging laborer, basically. I'm working in dirt, and it's hard work. There's nothing glamorous about this. People think, oh, creativity, how nice. It's a meat and potatoes, intense, passionate pursuit. So, anyway, now I'm beginning to gently coax my seams into place. I'm not all at once in a hurry putting it together. I'm coaxing it. I have teenagers. I know all about coaxing things into place. So now, I've never made this form before, and then when I had prepared for this video, I had prepared to do some of the forms that I had already been successful at. But then with my own philosophy, somehow or other, we stumbled on a new shape here that may not work, and this is just perfect, what we're doing right now. So I look at this shape and I say, wow, cool. And I'm beginning to get the seams together as much as I want them to look together. Right now, I'm working on a series of work that I want to kind of hide the seams, or at least I want the seams to fit together. There's artists that I know who purposely want to show their seams. They like to show their work. I'm going to cut this one off here with my knife. And I'm going to take a little bit of clay, wet clay, and I'm going to weld. A lot of these techniques are similar in all the different mediums, whether you're oil painting, working with metal, working with clay. You're welding things together. So I'm taking this little bit of clay and I'm welding those seams from within while I gently put a little bit of pressure on the outside with my fingers. This pressure on the outside cannot be too intense if I want to retain this pattern and this shape. Because if I start touching the outside a lot, it'll just muddy up that surface so poorly. So, learn again that proper touch when you're working with your material or your form. Now it's really fun to turn these things around and look at them in different ways, because you might have in your mind expected it to be one way, and then when you turn it on, you discover, wow, it looks so much better that way. Expectations are something you need to drop when you work with ceramics. Things don't come out like you expect they will. And it can be very frustrating, and it can be actually paralyzing and stop you from working, because you get your heart's desire set on this thing coming out of the kiln red and it comes out brown, and you don't want to go on. You got to drop that. Don't have expectations. You don't know what's going to happen, but you can control the process. You can control this working and this doing part. And that's the result in my mind. Once you've accomplished the process, you've accomplished the result. The result is so secondary. That's why I love creativity and making things, because all this is a journey for me on to the next piece. I don't have to look at each piece as a success or a failure, just another part of my little hobo family. Okay, now that's going to be a fun little pot. I like that as a little pot now, but it has no base. So I need to make a little base with it. I've got all these pieces around, and at the end of this demo today, in just a little while, we're going to talk to you about all these discarded pieces and how I don't want you to throw them away. I want you to hold them, save them off to the side, and the last thing you do this sort of freestyle creative piece, and I want to show you that in a second. So we have to put a base on it. Now a lot of these bases are flat, but recently I've been working on these cleat bottoms, so that instead of the base being flat, the base will repeat this pattern and gets lifted up just a little bit from the ground, making it so that there's air underneath, making the whole form seem lighter. And that's a good look for ceramics. Now, what I'm going to have to do is use my slip, and I come and get my red slip. And again, all this slip is the clay body and water melted down. And that's a very important part of your technique. If you do not put these together, then when you put them in the fire, in the kiln, they will separate, and you will have two pieces instead of one. I tell my students their creations don't ever break, they just change in the kiln. That's a good way to look at it. So I'm scoring, getting the ridges in pretty thick. I've had the opportunity to study with a lot of great heroic American masters. A lot of those masters, their work is behind me throughout the studio here. At the Pendant Workshop for years, we hosted these guys to come, and people would gather and watch them work. I watched them work in this slow, simple way, and I thought to myself, wow, how could I get to that simplicity? And it's taken me 42 years of complexity to arrive at this really simple place. I think that's what life is. It's really simple, and sometimes we circle around in this delusion of complexity and look for the simplicity. I learned that a lot from the guys who had been through that and had gotten to that point. They would always tell me, don't be so jerky. Don't be so quick. Calm down, turbo down. Okay, so I'm turboing down. We're gonna flip this over. I've scored both sides. And I'm now gonna place my pot on the base and gently, wasn't that fun? And gently put it on its base. And I'm not gonna, expect it to go on there all at once. I have 3 or 4 things that I'm working on at once so that I don't give too much love. It's like you don't want to love one child and then kind of give the other 2, sort of halfway love. That doesn't work. So I work on 2 or 3 pieces at a time, and that's really helpful for me. So none of them get too precious, and I'm not too worried about any one of them. Now again, I'm going to take just a small coil of clay and weld the base on to the form. And if you saw the inside, simply all I'm doing is taking my finger and gently putting a rope along the inside. It's not really crucial that you see that. Now we have a base, a cleated base on our form. So I show you that just before we put the base on our piece that we're making today, because we have some decisions to make. Now's the exciting point. Nobody's made a pot like this before. You are now in uncharted waters. You are Christopher Columbus. You are discovering things for yourself. That's the feeling you want every day. You want that Christopher Columbus feeling. I like it like that. I've made a lot of them like this. We're gonna make it like this today, like a little chimney pot. So I need a cleated base. So I'm gonna take one of these pieces that I cut out, and I'm gonna see if it'll be big enough for the base. Not quite. So I can elongate it out a little bit, or I can just go over to the other side of the table there and grab one of these slabs that I made last night that's already ready. Okay, perfect. So, really simple. A lot of these techniques, you don't need to be taught. It's really my theory that a lot of people are instinctively born with these techniques in them, especially when I go to a lot of the elementary schools. And I visited 600 elementary school classes in the last 3 years, and I've learned so much about creativity. A lot of the schools are multicultural, and there's a beautiful blend of different ethnicities. When I talk to the Hispanic children, I applaud them, and I tell them that their culture is heroic for teaching us ceramics. They did so much ceramic work, and it's buried in the ground, and there's like millions of these objects all around Mexico. It's really inspiring. So I need to find my knife, and my clay tools tend to be camouflaged, and they hide because I think the clay doesn't want me to use tools. I think, like I said, it wants me to just work with my hands. So I use my teeth a lot. Okay, now I'm just cutting along that base and then cutting this extra out. And again, I'm saving all the extras because the last thing we're gonna do is kind of a fun smorgasbord. And we'll do that. So basically now I have a base, and it's on there, but it's just sticking on there just because it's sticking on. I have to score and slip that. But, in the matter of, see, it just came off perfectly. So now, since it just did, let's do it. Let's repeat this again. When I'm teaching at school, I tell the students it takes them 9 times of watching me to get it. And I also tell them I give them extra credit for not watching me. So I gotta figure that one out. But this repetition is what you want, this repetition of technique. And once you get that out of the way, then you can really start to create whatever it is. So you practice your technique sewing. Once you got it down, you're gonna be making some really good clothes. You practice your technique cooking. You're gonna be making good dishes. You practice your technique with music. You're gonna be making great songs. All of this just applies directly to thousands of things that you can pick as your passion. And your life will find that direct connection, that balance. Okay. So this will go on this base, and I can get my hand in it, so I'll be able to do the little coil of clay on that. And I'll match that up to where it looks pretty good. So then, like all other pots, I'll have a foot, a base, I'll have a body and a shoulder, I'll have a neck, and then I have what's called the lip. And in a lot of pottery, lips are pretty boring, and they're just kind of smooth and round. So if you want, and you feel like you can still make some more ripping decisions here, you continue. And if it says in your mind and your heart, if it says to you, do that, do that. When it says do it, do it. Don't think, should I do it or not? Do it. Take a little bit of clay and put it on top so your lip isn't smooth. So it has a little pattern. Gives it a little different look. Make your own pots. Make your own recipes. Don't be afraid. Oh, well, will this ingredient taste okay? Try it. That's what my professor would always say. He would never say, we would always ask him questions, and all he said was, do it, try it. And, of course, well, that meant there was all kinds of problems and mistakes being done in our graduate facility. Disasters. But it's pretty exciting. Okay, so there's the lip. Now, I like that a lot better. I think that has texture, it has more pattern, and it flows with the shape of the piece. All right, now, as the last bit of this demo today, and let me tell you, I sure appreciate you visiting with me, and I appreciate your time. Your time is valuable, and your decisions are valuable. So, thank you for giving me this little bit of time. Now that I've shown you how to make the one piece, before we move on, let me show you some of the solutions I've come up with this template pattern technique. We can make handled vases. We can make larger handled vases. This one I just made 2 days ago, and I'm really fond of that one. When I first was doing the technique, I just put 2 slabs together, and I hadn't figured out how to round them yet. And then 2 days ago, I slowly but surely figured out how to, well, like a teenager who's really mad at you, really take your time to coax them around to being round. So now I can make handles, so that means I can make teapots and pitchers and large steins, which just that little discovery of the handle gave me all kinds of potential. To me, these pots are ceremonial. They're sort of like the new design for America. I'm into making a Made in the USA series here, so it's like they're like rivets. They're like bubble wraps. They make me feel like I want to go pinch them. Oh, let me show you one really quick. Airstream trailer compartment jar. My wife loves this one. And my brother lives in an Airstream, so I think I'm going to give him this one or not. But I'm not sure how convenient a big old ceramic object would be in an Airstream trailer, though. So, we're in trouble. All right, so let me get these out of the way for a second. And then I want to move into the final. Oh, let me show you just this plate here, because we're going to move into this final segment. I want to make a small asymmetrical plate out of the parts that we did not discard, that we saved. And this is more of a two-dimensional piece. You can put some holes in your legs if you want to, so that it can either be on the table or hung on the wall. Because a lot of people have wall space. They like these plates to be on the wall. So we'll make one of those right now. Now, With this more spontaneous plate project, you get to have more of a loose attitude. You don't have to worry about anything because it may come out, it may not. We get a little piece of styrofoam from the sewing shop or the craft store. Okay, so we're going to lay a piece of paper on the top of that. Now, in these processes of making your pieces, you have lots of leftover things. Leftovers are funny, aren't they? You have leftovers in food. You put them in the fridge to eat them or not. Who eats them? You know, are they too old to eat? So, leftovers is a fun word. Leftovers can be good. These are like pizza or like those little boxes, cartons of Chinese food. Those kind of leftovers are delicious. All right, so you've got these pieces. And usually when you're making decisions, well, you're thinking a lot. You're kind of like, okay, you know, where's this going to fit? Where's this going to look good? In this ending part, we don't think too much. We get into our hands and we begin to just take parts and drape them over, and we start to scrape and use a little bit of our glue. It'd be nice if we didn't have to do this part, but if this thing is beautiful, then it'll stay together and I can fire it and, you know, somebody can have it. But if I don't do my technique right, then it may not work. Okay. Doop. And I'm thinking a little bit, but I'm not stressed in any way right now. I do not feel stress in my body. I don't like stress in my body. I don't like going out in the freeways. That puts stress in my body. That stop and go thing. I really have a theory about stopping and going. I think we really lose our momentum many times in today's society with these endless cell phone calls and these meetings and things. And the stopping and going is hurting our work. So I'd rather focus on my work. Art teaches you how to focus. Art teaches you how to be a leader. Art teaches you how to be self-reliant. Art teaches you how to be independent. Art teaches you self-worth. You don't want to marginalize art. That's a very unhealthy thing to do. I don't see how a society could ever think it could sustain by marginalizing art. Whew, scary thought. Who would do that? Okay, so we're continuing to put our pieces together and scoring. I'm looking at color a little. Hey, this is coming together really well. Sometimes they don't. But it's okay either way. Because the next day's coming. And I get to wake up again and warm up and create. And then the next day comes and I get to warm up and create. And this is life. And then you don't. You don't wake up anymore. And then the next person wakes up and they get to warm up and create. And this has been going on for thousands of years. So it's just a continuum. If you look at it like that, it's not so heavy duty, everything. Everything's so anxious and stressed. What are you really so stressed about? Sheesh. It's usually money. I tell the kids that if they are creative, they can't be needy. Needy and creative are two different things. So when you're being creative, you're not needful. That's the way kind of we want them to grow up. We could have done a demo today just by doing this plate, because this is a really fun thing. And how's your pattern going together? Well, you don't really know because it's upside down, so you don't really know what it looks like. So, because we are kind of wrapping it up here, let's continue to put this together in different asymmetric ways. Ooh, I like that one, curving like that, because I haven't curved any of them yet. And I do not want it round. That's one thing I know. I don't want it round. I don't want it symmetric. All right. We're about there now. Now you can take all of this clay and melt it back down in water and let it sit out, and it'll reconstitute itself. It'll be fine. There's clay all over the ground. You can go dig up clay. You don't have to go to the store to buy clay. Mother Nature does all of it. Okay, fire it up now. We got our plate ready to go. I'm gonna put a little glue all over the bottom. Ooh, that's a fun part. That's like when you put the egg yolk all over the bread. It's about to go in the oven, right? So now I'm gonna take my thing and I'm gonna tighten everything up. Tighten it all up. Bring everything together. Compressing it all into one. And I didn't design this. I put the energy into it. I put it together, but something else is designing this right now. I'm collaborating with something else. It's kind of an ESPN thing. So, okay. Now the last thing I have to do is just take some wet clay, my welding material, my oil paint, my solder, wet clay. Start at the right place too. When you go pick your clay and find your clay, find somebody who makes really good clay. You know, like if you were going to make a really good vegetarian dish, you wouldn't want to go and like go to the back of Rayleigh's and pick out the 3-day-old vegetables that they're throwing out. You'd probably want to go to the organic farmer who you knew was really going to be nutritious for the people you were going to feed. Start out with good clay. Okay, we're sealing it all together so that when it gets in the kiln and fires, it will stay together. Clay, ceramics is a gradual process. You work with the wet clay and then you let it dry over weeks to be prepare itself for the fire, for the first kiln. Then you put it in the kiln and you lovingly bake it for 3 days or 2 days. And then you take it out and you contemplate it some more and you choose whether you're going to put shiny glazes on the surface. All the while knowing that all your work could be a failure in a second, or it could blow up or crack and you'd have nothing but the process. And how would you show people the pay stub of that? How would you tell people, oh yeah, I worked so hard? And they'd say, well, let me see. You'd have nothing to show them. But inside your heart, you'd have so much to show. All this passion. All this time spent pursuing passion that didn't cost you any money. So now when I have my plate as glued together as I want, then I can just pick 4 places to make some legs. And I can take a few of my scraps and just fold them over to make the little feet. So I'm really interacting with all the stuff and the material, and we started off with a clean table and we ended with kind of a scattered table with all the remnants of our creative process. A lot of these remnants are just so energy packed. And then this is what this technique addresses. The use of some of this energy that you might overlook. So I've made 4 feet, and they're going to go on as the little feet. Get it on your plate, sort of where you think it will balance enough, and then paying attention to the repetition of the process, scoring and applying your feet so that they'll stay on. Again, these are techniques that your cultures have been using for thousands of years. And these are not difficult techniques. If you are fearless and you are brave enough to try, and you're not afraid to fail, you will have no trouble. So now I let this dry for, depending on the weather, or if you're outside or inside, a day or a few hours if you're outside. And then I turn it over. Right now I wouldn't turn it over yet, but we can today. And it will be round. And what you have, and I'm glad you just saw that, because basically that's a bad one right there. That's what you don't do. You don't pull it off the form so it just completely collapses on you if you let it dry. But I think it's really beneficial at the end of this demo for you to just complete not successful way to do it. Okay, so these are the plates after they're fired once. This would be very similar to this had I have left it on the form. But I wanted to show you, and I think it's really beneficial for you to see what will happen if you don't kind of follow your technique. And if you like that, then hey, rock it. But I was kind of hoping, I was hoping that it would be a little bit more of a container. Now I can take this now and put it right back on. And then I'm back in the game. No worries. Clay's really forgiving. And let me end by saying, be passionate, warm up, and I'll see you next time.